Hello, my name is Nadav Shashar, and with my colleagues, I want to talk to you today about polarization vision and how it allows cephalopods to see sharper in turbid waters. Now, usually, we don't know about polarization vision in cephalopods for many years, since the work of Moody and Paris in 1960s, and later on the work of Seidel in the 80s of the previous century. Then we know that cephalopods can see polarized light very, very well, and also that they use it for different tasks, for example, for detection prey, for communication, and for other things which we're not really sure about them so far. However, the issue of contrast detection and their ability to detect fish or other objects based on polarization vision have been questioned. One of the reasons for that is that if we look at this picture, and this is a picture of fish, look between two cross polarizers, then actually the contrast between the two sides of the filter are very limited. It's only 17%. So the question is, what's the actual signal? However, when we look between these differences between the fish and the background, in both cases, well, we see a different story. And overall, the polarization contrast only of the fish is pretty high. But is the contrast the real issue here? Now, let's look here at a grass shrimp, and we can see it hiding very well on the bottom. This is on the normal illumination, and we can see the contrast between the grass shrimp here and the background is very high. But it's not so between the grass shrimp and its gravel that it's standing on. So it's not only contrast. Now, when we look at the same grass shrimp, and this is a work which was done at Normandy, at the laboratory at Luxembourg, what we see here under cross polarizers, the grass shrimp has a very significant signature, visual signature, which is different from both the background and the object or the gravel it's standing on. So there are differences here. Now, we usually think about contrast, visual contrast between this thing, black and white here, and there is a clear border, and then we calculate the intensity here, and we do nice calculations, and we say, well, this is the contrast. However, in real life, these cross borders are not really there. They are not so sharp. And if we look at this image over here, well, there is a different story here. There is black here, there is white here, and there is a gradual path here. And then for a visual system, to distinguish between the two sides is not so simple. In fact, most of us would be hard to believe that the black here and the black here are the same, and the white here and the white here are the same. So what's going on here, and what is really the matter? We have the same contrast, but the detectability, the ability to distinguish between these two sides are very different. So for that, we use this target, which we used in many other experiments. Here we have cross polarizers at 90 degrees to each other. Here we have white and black targets. This is how it looks under intensity. This is how it looks under polarization imaging. And we put it in clear water or in semi-turbid water. And you can see the targets, how they look at different visual abilities. So you see here intensity, obviously there is no difference in polarization. And in polarization, you can see everything, and it changes with turbidity. So let's look at what is the actual difference. Now, we're interested not so much in the contrast between here and here, or here and here, but actually how this contrast develops and the width of the border. So you see that along the line here, the intensity goes from high intensity to low intensity, but it does it gradually. The border is a bit fuzzy. And here, another case, the fuzziness or the narrowness of the border is much tighter. So it's pretty obvious that if you have a narrow border versus a wide border, then narrow border is better for sharp vision. It's very easy to distinguish between one side to the other and to know where one starts and where one ends. So from that, we did several experiments in both clear water, medium turbids based on sand, and medium turbidity based on unicellular algae. And what we found is that if we look at the contrast or the width of the border actually between intensity and polarization, then we saw that intensity contrast or the width of the border or the fuzziness under intensity is always higher than under polarization. Now, I remind you, the higher the number, the worse is the visual ability. So we see that under clear water, it's somewhat higher. It's about 10%, and that's pretty similar. It's not that much. However, when we go under medium turbidity of sand or of algae, we go up to about 25% difference, and that's quite a bit. So then we took the target, of course, on a much larger scale, and put it in underwater, and we looked at what's the distance in which you can detect the two different sites. And we saw that under polarization, you increase the distance by about 56%. And that's pretty interesting. It's a bit lower. It was the 70% that were reported in the different previous experiments, but it's still significantly high. So what this shows us is that polarization sharpens the borders between the different sides, and this increases the detection range. Now, this was so in clear waters to some extent, in medium turbidity to high extent, and in the sea we had medium turbidity in Eilat. But when we go to high turbidity, then, well, the whole visual field goes to hell, and then we don't see much. I want to thank here, when we finished the teaching, of Thomas Cronin and of Bill Seidel. Bill, I want to mention, is retiring this year. And this work was supported by grants from the PRC, CNRS, and Israeli Most Ministry of Science and Technology, and specific other grants. I thank you very much.